The phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, an unfamiliar number flashing on the screen. Olivia Thompson hesitated, her hand hovering, then answered, her voice cautious. "Hello?" "Olivia. Darling, it's Sophia," came the syrupy reply, dripping with a sweetness that set Olivia's nerves on edge. Her grip tightened on the phone. Of all people, why was Sophia calling? "What do you want?" Olivia asked, her tone flat, steeling herself against whatever was coming. "Oh, I just thought I'd check in, see how you're holding up," Sophia said, her voice lilting with false concern. "It must be so hard, going through all this. I mean, losing Marcus, giving up all those lovely things." She paused, letting the words hang, and Olivia realized too late this was a setup, a calculated jab disguised as pleasantries. Olivia closed her eyes, exhaling slowly, her free hand clenching into a fist. "I'm fine, Sophia. Is there a point to this call?" Sophia's laugh was light, almost musical, but it carried a razor's edge. "Well, I suppose I just wanted to share a little moment with you. Right now, as we're speaking, I'm wearing that gorgeous emerald necklace you sent over. It looks stunning on me, don't you think?" Marcus can't stop staring. Olivia's stomach twisted, the image searing into her mind. Sophia preening in that necklace, the one Marcus had given her after Liam's birth, a symbol of a love she'd thought was unbreakable. The anger she'd been suppressing, the rage buried under layers of resolve, surged to the surface, hot and unrelenting. She pressed her lips together, willing herself to stay calm, not to give Sophia the satisfaction of a reaction. "Good for you," she managed, her voice tight. But Sophia wasn't done. Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "You know what really turns me on, Olivia? Knowing I conquered a married man. Knowing I made him strip his ex-wife bare, your jewelry, your kids' toys, your whole pathetic life. It's exhilarating." Olivia's restraint snapped like a taut wire, her anger exploding into white-hot fury. "You think this is a game, Sophia?" She spat, her voice trembling with rage. "You think you've won something? You're parading around in my old life like it's a trophy, but you're nothing but a scavenger picking at scraps. Marcus didn't choose you because you're special. He chose you because you're easy. A distraction, a shiny toy he'll toss aside the second he gets bored. And trust me, he will." A stunned silence hung on the line. Olivia pressed on, her words sharp and unrelenting. "You want to gloat about that necklace? Go ahead, wear it until it chokes you. But don't dare call me again, acting like you've conquered anything. You're not worth my time, and neither is he." Sophia's composure faltered, her voice rising in pitch. "How dare you?" Olivia cut her off, her voice steady now, cold as steel. "You wanted a reaction? You got one. Now stay out of my life." She slammed the phone down, her hands shaking, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The call had come weeks after the courtroom showdown in Eldridge Court, where the seeds of Sophia's cruelty were sown. Olivia sat rigidly that day, her gaze fixed on Marcus across the polished oak table that separated them like a chasm. For a fleeting moment, it felt as though she was seeing him for the first time, not the man she had married 12 years ago, but a stranger cloaked in familiar features. His sharp jawline, once softened by laughter during late-night talks, now carried a smugness that twisted her stomach. 12 years of marriage, 2 children, Liam and Lily, and now this bitter, jagged ending. His eyes gleamed with a triumphant glint, as if he'd won some grand prize, and that smugness cut deeper than his infidelities, deeper than the countless humiliations she'd swallowed to keep their family intact. A family, she realized now, that only she had ever truly wanted. Marcus leaned back in his chair, tailored suit crisp and unrumpled, exuding an air of victory. He was leaving her, their life, for Sophia. Young, radiant Sophia with her confident smile and effortless charm, who Marcus believed understood him in ways Olivia never could. Olivia, who had poured her soul into their home, into raising Liam and Lily, into building a life she thought they both cherished. She glanced at Marcus's hands, folded casually on the table, and remembered how they used to cradle their children. Now those same hands seemed indifferent, as if Liam and Lily were no longer his blood legacy. "Olivia, you okay?" Her lawyer, Evelyn Bennett, whispered, her voice a low hum of concern. Olivia managed a tight nod, though her throat burned with unshed tears. She couldn't afford to unravel here, not in front of him. Across the room, Marcus's lawyer murmured something in his ear, and he smirked, a flicker of amusement crossing his face. Olivia's chest tightened. Did he even think of Liam, who idolized him, or Lily, who still asked why Daddy was gone so often? Apparently not. Child support? Oh, he'd pay it. Begrudgingly, of course, the bare minimum required by law. Enough to keep the court off his back, but not a cent more. Not when Sophia's wants loomed so large in his new life. Olivia imagined Sophia's sleek apartment, filled with expensive trinkets Marcus would happily provide, while Lily's worn-out ballet shoes went unreplaced. The judge's gavel struck, a sharp crack that echoed in the hushed courtroom. Hello. Thanks for watching and being part of this journey. If you enjoy story like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support means the world. Now let's dive into the story. The court grants the divorce as stipulated, the judge intoned, her voice steady and clinical. Custody of the minor children, Liam and Lily, is awarded to Ms. Olivia Thompson, with Mr. Marcus Thompson to provide child support as outlined. Visitation rights to be determined per the agreement. The words washed over Olivia like a distant tide, as if they belonged to someone else's life. She stared at the grain of the table, tracing its swirls with her eyes, unwilling to meet Marcus's gaze again. Olivia, Evelyn said softly, touching her arm. It's over. You did what you had to. Did I? Olivia's voice was barely a whisper, raw with doubt. She thought of Liam's quiet anger, Lily's tear-streaked face when she'd explained why Daddy wasn't coming home. Had she fought hard enough? Had she failed them by letting it come to this? Marcus stood, adjusting his tie with a practiced flick, and spared her a single glance, not of regret, but of dismissal. The courtroom felt stifling, the air heavy with the finality of it all. 12 years, shared life, hopes, dreams, promises, had collapsed like a brittle house of cards, leaving Olivia hollowed out. The gavel's echo still lingered in her ears. But what came next was a twist even her seasoned lawyer, Evelyn Bennett, hadn't anticipated. As the judge prepared to adjourn, Marcus cleared his throat, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the courtroom. Your Honor, he said, his tone edged with a confidence that made Olivia's skin prickle, there's one more thing. Sophia, standing just behind him, leaned in, her glossy lips curving into a faint, encouraging smile. Olivia's stomach churned. What now? The judge, a wiry man with silver hair and a perpetually furrowed brow, peered over his glasses. Yes, Mr. Thompson. Marcus shifted in his seat, fingers drumming lightly on the table. I'd like to request the return of certain gifts I gave Olivia during our marriage. Expensive ones. He shrugged, as if it were a casual afterthought. They're of significant monetary value. A stunned silence blanketed the room. The judge blinked, his frown deepening, and removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson. Could you clarify what you mean by gifts? Marcus leaned forward, unfazed. Jewelry, for starters, like the emerald necklace I got her for our 5th anniversary. The diamond earrings from Florence. Oh, and the antique silver bracelet she always wore to those charity galas. There's other stuff too. A crystal vase, some designer handbags. They're worth a good amount, and, well, I'd like them back. Olivia's breath caught, her heart pounding so loudly she thought it might echo in the room. She stared at Marcus, searching for some trace of the man she'd once loved. But all she saw was a stranger, his eyes cold and calculating. This wasn't just petty, it was a deliberate jab, a final twist of the knife to humiliate her. She glanced at Sophia, whose smirk was barely concealed, and realized this wasn't just Marcus's idea. It was a performance, orchestrated to strip Olivia of even the smallest remnants of their shared past. Evelyn's pen froze mid-note, her voice a fierce whisper. This is absurd. He has no legal standing to demand gifts back. Let me handle this. But Olivia barely heard her. The audacity of it, Marcus standing there, listing off tokens of a life they'd built together like items on a garage sale list, left her reeling. The emerald necklace, a gift after a tearful reconciliation when Liam was born. The earrings, bought on a whim during a rare moment of joy. The bracelet, which she'd worn to feel strong at events where she played the perfect wife. These weren't just objects, they were fragments of her heart, now being haggled over in open court. The judge cleared his throat, his expression a mix of disbelief and irritation. Mr. Thompson, gifts given during a marriage are generally considered the property of the recipient. If you're seeking to reclaim these items, that would require a separate hearing with proper documentation and valuation. This court isn't the place for itemized disputes of this nature. Marcus opened his mouth, but before he could respond, Olivia's voice rang out, steady despite the tremor in her chest. Your Honor, there's no need for another hearing. The room stilled. Evelyn's head snapped toward her, eyes wide. Olivia, don't. Olivia raised her hand, silencing her lawyer. She stood, her posture rigid, and faced the judge. I'll return everything. The necklace, the earrings, the bracelet, the vase, the bags, all of it. He can have them. The judge's brow lifted, and he leaned forward, his voice gentle but probing. Ms. Thompson, are you certain? You're under no obligation to agree to this. We can address this matter formally if necessary. Olivia's throat tightened, but she forced a small, resolute nod. I'm sure, Your Honor. I don't want to drag this out any further. She paused, her gaze flicking to Marcus, who looked momentarily startled, as if he hadn't expected her to capitulate so easily. I'm done holding on to things that don't matter anymore. Sophia's smirk faltered, and Marcus shifted uncomfortably, his bravado dimming under the weight of Olivia's quiet dignity. The judge hesitated, then nodded. Very well, Ms. Thompson. If you're certain, the court will note your agreement to return the specified items. I'll leave it to both parties to coordinate the details outside of court. Evelyn leaned in again, her whisper urgent. Olivia, you don't have to do this. This is just him trying to hurt you. Olivia met her lawyer's eyes, her voice barely audible. I know, but I'm not fighting over scraps. Let him have his trophies. I'm keeping what matters, my kids, my self-respect. The courtroom, already thick with tension, seemed to constrict further as Sophia tugged at Marcus's sleeve, her manicured nails glinting under the fluorescent lights. Marcus straightened, emboldened, and fixed Olivia with a defiant stare. I want everything that cost more than $50 that I gave you returned, he declared, his voice ringing with a bravado that made Olivia's jaw tighten. He paused, glancing at Sophia, who leaned in and murmured something in his ear, her lips curling with malice. Marcus nodded, then added, and the gifts I gave the kids as well, if they cost more than $50. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Olivia's heart plummeted, the words slicing through her like a cold blade. This was beyond humiliation. It was a deliberate, calculated cruelty. She stared at Marcus, searching for any remnant of the man who'd once tucked Liam into bed or braided Lily's hair for school. But all she saw was a stranger, his face alight with a smugness that made her skin crawl. The kids! He was dragging Liam and Lily into this petty vendetta, demanding the return of birthday presents, Christmas gifts, tokens of a father's love now reduced to line items on his ledger. Are you serious? Olivia asked, her voice low, trembling with the effort to remain calm. Her hands gripped the edge of the table, knuckles whitening. Absolutely, Marcus replied, his grin widening, all teeth and arrogance. Everything, down to the last souvenir. I've spent quite a bit on you and your offspring, and I know I can't demand money back, but I want at least the things back. He leaned back, crossing his arms, as if he'd just delivered a checkmate. Sophia stood beside him, her smile predatory, eyes glinting with triumph. She was the puppeteer here, Olivia realized, the instigator of this grotesque display. This wasn't just about reclaiming gifts, it was about stripping Olivia bare, making her feel small, poor, discarded. Sophia wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd lost, to rub salt in the wound of her shattered marriage. Evelyn Bennett shot to her feet, her voice sharp with indignation. Your Honor, this is outrageous. There's no legal basis for demanding the return of gifts, especially those given to minor children. This is harassment, plain and simple. But Marcus cut her off, his tone unwavering. I'm entitled to what's mine. I'm not backing down. The judge, visibly exasperated, raised a hand. Mr. Thompson, I've already stated that such matters require a separate hearing. I strongly advise you to reconsider this course of action. Olivia barely heard them. The room seemed to blur, the voices fading into a distant hum. She looked at Marcus, then Sophia, their smug satisfaction radiating like a toxic haze. Marcus's eyes met hers, and his smile widened, as if he expected her to crumble, hoped for it even. He was waiting for a spectacle, tears, for her to beg or rage. But Olivia felt something else entirely, not anger, not even pain, but a strange, clarifying indifference. They were so small, pathetic in their greed, clawing at trinkets to prop up their hollow victory. It was almost pitiable. She rose slowly, her movements deliberate, and the room fell silent. It's fine, she said, her voice calm and firm, cutting through the tension like a blade. I'll return all your gifts, everything, down to the last one. Sophia's eyes lit up, gleaming with a feverish excitement. Olivia could almost see her mentally cataloguing the spoils. The emerald necklace, the diamond earrings, the silver bracelet, perhaps even Lily's music box or Liam's telescope, gifts Marcus had once presented with a smile. Sophia's anticipation was palpable, a vulture circling a carcass, eager to claim her prize. Marcus, however, faltered, his smirk wavering. He hadn't expected this. Olivia's quiet resolve, her refusal to give him the emotional outburst he craved. You're sure? He asked, a trace of uncertainty creeping into his voice. Completely, Olivia replied, her gaze steady. I'll box it all up. The jewelry, the vase, the handbags, the kids' gifts too. Liam's telescope, Lily's music box, the books, the toys. If it cost more than $50, it's yours. She paused, letting the words settle, then added, I hope it's worth it, Marcus. The judge cleared his throat, his tone weary. Ms. Thompson, I must reiterate that you're under no obligation to comply with this request. If you wish, we can. No, Your Honor, Olivia interrupted, her voice unwavering. I'm done with this. Let him have his things. I don't need them. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, his bravado dimming under the weight of Olivia's composure. Sophia, oblivious to the shift, squeezed his arm, her smile triumphant. But Olivia saw it, the flicker of doubt in Marcus's eyes, the realization that he'd miscalculated. He'd wanted to break her, but instead, she was walking away, unbowed. As the judge adjourned the session, Olivia gathered her purse and stood, her heart heavy but her resolve unbroken. She thought of Liam and Lily, waiting at home, unaware of their father's latest betrayal. She'd protect them, shield them from this ugliness. And as for Marcus's precious gifts, she'd return them all, every last one, and let him choke on his hollow victory. The week following the courtroom showdown passed in a haze of quiet determination for Olivia. Each day, she devoted herself to the task of gathering Marcus's gifts, a meticulous purge of the past that felt both cathartic and crushing. She moved through the house in willow brick like a ghost, rummaging through closets, drawers, and dusty storage boxes tucked away in corners. Every item she uncovered, a velvet jewelry case, a sleek designer handbag, a delicate crystal vase, carried a memory, sharp and bittersweet. The emerald necklace he'd given her after Liam's birth, a symbol of their fragile reconciliation. The diamond earrings from Florence, a fleeting moment of joy in a crumbling marriage. The silver bracelet she'd worn to feel strong at events where she played the beautiful wife. One by one, she placed them into cardboard boxes, their weight heavier than their monetary value. The house was silent, save for the soft creak of floorboards and the rustle of tissue paper as she wrapped each item with care, as if preserving them for someone else's life. She worked methodically, her hands steady even as her heart ached. The kids were at school during the day, and she was grateful for the solitude. It spared her from explaining why she was dismantling pieces of their shared history. But the hardest part came last. On the final evening, with boxes of her own gifts sealed and stacked in the living room, Olivia steeled herself and stepped into Liam's bedroom. The room smelled faintly of his cologne and the lingering scent of the comic books he loved. Her eyes fell on the telescope by the window, a Christmas gift from Marcus when Liam was 10, back when he'd spent hours teaching his son to name the stars. She hesitated, her fingers brushing the cool metal, then gently disassembled it, wrapping each piece in bubble wrap. Next, she gathered the leather-bound astronomy books Marcus had given him, their pages still marked with Liam's careful notes. Her throat tightened as she placed them in a box, imagining Liam's confusion, his quiet anger, when he learned his father wanted these back. Lily's room was even worse. The pastel walls and fairy lights felt like a sanctuary Olivia was violating. She knelt by the bed and lifted the music box Marcus had given Lily for her 8th birthday, its delicate melody tinkling as she opened it. Lily had played it every night before bed, her small fingers tracing the carved lilies on its lid. Olivia's vision blurred with tears as she wrapped it carefully, tucking it beside the stuffed unicorn Marcus had bought during a rare family trip to the zoo. She added the charm bracelet Lily adored, its tiny ballet slipper and star pendants clinking softly as she packed it away. Each item felt like a theft, a betrayal of her children's trust. But Olivia pressed on, her resolve hardened by the memory of Marcus's smug grin and Sophia's predatory smile. When she finished, the boxes sat in the living room like silent sentinels, a testament to a life unraveled. Olivia sank onto the couch, exhaustion settling into her bones. She stared at the stack, her mind replaying the courtroom scene. Marcus's audacity, Sophia's glee, the judge's weary disbelief. A part of her wanted to call Evelyn, to ask if there was a way to fight this, to keep the children's gifts at least. But she dismissed the thought. Fighting would only prolong the pain, give Marcus the satisfaction of seeing her struggle. No, she'd give him what he wanted and let him choke on it. The front door creaked open, and Liam's voice called out, "Mom, you home?" "In here, sweetheart," Olivia said, forcing a smile as Liam and Lily appeared, backpacks slung over their shoulders. Liam's gaze landed on the boxes, his brow furrowing. "What's all this?" Lily peeked around him, her eyes wide. "Are we moving?" Olivia's heart clenched. She'd hoped to delay this conversation, to shield them a little longer. "No, honey, we're not moving," she said softly, rising to meet them. "These are some things your dad asked for, gifts he gave us over the years." Liam's expression darkened, his jaw tightening in a way that made him look far older than his 15 years. "What, like your jewelry? That's so messed up." Lily clutched her backpack, her voice small. "Does that mean my music box too?" Olivia knelt before her, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's face. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. But it's okay. We don't need those things to be happy, right? We've got each other." Lily's lip trembled, but she nodded, leaning into Olivia's embrace. Liam, however, stood rigid, his fists clenched. "He's taking my telescope, isn't he? After he promised we'd use it together this summer." Olivia stood, resting a hand on his shoulder. "I know it hurts, Liam. I wish I could change it. But your dad, he's made his choice. We're going to be okay without those things, I promise." With the boxes of Marcus's gifts sealed and stacked in the living room, Olivia wiped her eyes, grabbed a notebook, and sat at the kitchen table, her resolve hardening. She decided to make a list of every item she was returning, a catalogue of Marcus's greed laid bare. She wrote with precision, her pen scratching against the paper as she documented everything, from the extravagant to the trivial. The emerald necklace, valued at thousands, from their 5th anniversary. The diamond earrings from Florence, a reckless splurge during a rare happy trip. The silver bracelet, antique and irreplaceable, from a charity auction. The crystal vase, a housewarming gift for their first home. Designer handbags, barely used, from years when Marcus wanted her to look the part. Liam's telescope, a Christmas gift that had sparked his love for the stars. Lily's music box, its melody a nightly comfort. The charm bracelet with its tiny ballet slipper, a 10th birthday surprise. Even the cheap trinkets, a $60 souvenir mug from a family vacation. A $75 set of novelty pens Marcus had tossed into Lily's Christmas stocking. A $55 model ship Liam had painstakingly assembled with his father's help. The list grew, sprawling across pages, an absurd inventory of a life dismantled. Olivia included every last item, no matter how small, her handwriting steady and deliberate. She wanted Marcus to see the ridiculousness of his demand, to confront the pettiness of his actions in black and white. Let him and Sophia sift through this pathetic haul, she thought. Let them choke on their victory when they realize how hollow it was. It was a de Evelyn. She imagined delivering the boxes, the list tucked neatly inside, and Marcus's face as he read it. Would he feel shame, doubt, or would Sophia's laughter drown out any flicker of regret? It didn't matter. Olivia was done seeking validation from him. She closed the notebook and stood, her heart lighter than it had been in weeks. The boxes, the list, the memories, they were Marcus's to claim. Olivia stood in the dim glow of her nearly empty living room, the weight of finality pressing against her chest. She resolved to pack one last box, a small, unassuming vessel for the relics of a life she wasn't ready to surrender. These weren't mere objects, they were fragments of her heart, each one heavy with memories she'd fought to keep. She knew she had no choice but to let them go, yet the act felt like a betrayal. Her ex-husband's reaction loomed in her mind, unpredictable and sharp, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Would he unravel at the sight of them? Would he even care? One thing was certain. This box, carefully curated with pieces of their shared past, would be her final, deliberate strike, a quiet, devastating blow meant to linger long after she was gone. On the appointed day, a delivery van rumbled to a stop outside Marcus's sleek new apartment in Oakville, its tires crunching against the curb. The driver and his loader, sweating in the late morning heat, grunted as they hefted several cardboard boxes onto the sidewalk, their edges taped tightly shut. Marcus stood on the porch, arms crossed, a crooked grin spreading across his face. He thought he'd won, forced Olivia to bend, acknowledge his superiority in this final, petty power play. He had no inkling of what awaited him inside those boxes, no sense of the quiet defiance packed alongside the trinkets he'd demanded. "Sign here, sir," the driver said, thrusting a clipboard at Marcus. He scrawled his name with a flourish, barely glancing at the receipt, and waved the men off. As the van pulled away, Marcus surveyed the stack of boxes, his grin widening. This was his victory, tangible and neatly packaged. With Sophia hovering nearby, her eyes bright with anticipation, Marcus began hauling the boxes inside, one by one, into the pristine living room with its glass coffee table and cream-colored sofa. The task was tedious, but Sophia's excitement was infectious. She clapped her hands like a child on Christmas morning, her laughter echoing through the apartment. When he set down the last box, Marcus wiped his brow and turned to her, his voice teasing. "Happy now, princess?" Ecstatic, Sophia purred, wrapping her arms around him. They kissed, her lips lingering on his, and Marcus chuckled. "All right, let's clean up this mess and see what we've got." Sophia wasted no time. She pounced on the boxes, her fingers tearing at the tape with eager precision. She zeroed in on one marked with Olivia's initials, ignoring the others in her frenzy. The box opened to reveal a treasure trove of Olivia's possessions, each item nestled in tissue paper like relics of a life discarded. Sophia gasped, pulling out the emerald necklace, its stones catching the light in a cascade of green fire. "Oh, Marcus, look at this!" she squealed, draping it around her neck. Next came the diamond earrings, which she clipped on with a delighted giggle, admiring her reflection in a nearby mirror. The silver bracelet followed, its antique links gleaming as she slipped it onto her wrist. She rifled through the rest, designer handbags, the crystal vase, cooing over each piece, modeling them like a child playing dress-up. "These are mine now," she declared, twirling in the living room, her voice dripping with triumph. Marcus, meanwhile, turned to another box, heavier, filled with the children's gifts. He sifted through it with a detached air, his fingers brushing against Liam's telescope, its metal cool to the touch. He set it aside, mentally calculating its resale value. Lily's music box came next, its carved lid intricate but meaningless to him now. He stacked it with the charm bracelet and a set of astronomy books, muttering to himself about posting them online. These should fetch a decent price, he said, more to himself than Sophia, who was. "These are mine now," she declared, twirling in the living room, her voice dripping with triumph. Marcus, meanwhile, turned to another box, heavier, filled with the children's gifts. He sifted through it with a detached air, his fingers brushing against Liam's telescope, its metal cool to the touch. He set it aside, mentally calculating its resale value. Lily's music box came next, its carved lid intricate but meaningless to him now. He stacked it with the charm bracelet and a set of astronomy books, muttering to himself about posting them online. These should fetch a decent price, he said, more to himself than Sophia, who was too engrossed in her new baubles to care. Then Sophia opened a smaller box, its contents less glamorous. Inside were photographs, postcards, and a bundle of children's drawings, their edges curling with age. She frowned, lifting a crayon sketch of a tank Liam had drawn years ago, then a postcard from a family trip to the bay. Her lip curled in disdain. "Marcus, this box is just worthless garbage," she said, tossing a handful of drawings onto the coffee table. "Throw it out with the trash." Marcus glanced over, barely registering the contents. "Yeah, sure," he said, already gathering the empty cardboard boxes to flatten for recycling. He scooped up the smaller box, its contents untouched, and carried it to the garage along with a few other unopened ones, shoving them onto a shelf beside paint cans and forgotten gym equipment. To him, it was just clutter, insignificant compared to the glittering spoils Sophia was fawning over. As Sophia pranced around the living room, the emerald necklace glinting at her throat, Marcus felt a flicker of satisfaction. He'd gotten what he wanted: Olivia's capitulation, Sophia's delight, a tidy haul to sell or flaunt. But as he looked at the scattered drawings on the table, Lily's uneven flowers, Liam's lopsided planes, something stirred in his chest, faint and fleeting. He pushed it down, turning away to join Sophia, who was now admiring the crystal vase on the mantel. "Worth every second of that court nonsense," Sophia said, her voice smug as she adjusted the diamond earrings. Marcus nodded, forcing a smile, but his eyes lingered on the garage door where the small box sat, forgotten. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. The victory was his, or so he told himself. The days following Sophia's venomous phone call were a descent into darkness for Olivia. Sleepless nights piled one atop another, her mind a relentless churn of memories and regrets. She tried to sleep, but images of Marcus's smug grin and Sophia's predatory smile haunted her. The depression that had been simmering since the divorce surged, pulling her under like a riptide. Simple tasks, making breakfast, driving the kids to school, felt insurmountable. She hid her unraveling from Liam and Lily as best she could, but the cracks were showing, and the weight of it all became too much. One morning, after a night of staring at the ceiling, Olivia broke. She called Evelyn, her voice trembling as she admitted she couldn't cope. Evelyn, ever the steady anchor, arranged for Olivia to check into a psychiatric hospital in Riverton for a week of intensive care. The decision was agonizing. Leaving Liam and Lily with her sister felt like another failure. But Olivia knew she couldn't be the mother they needed if she didn't get help. The hospital was a blur of therapy sessions, quiet rooms, and medication adjustments. She spoke little at first, the words trapped behind a wall of grief. But slowly, with the guidance of a kind therapist, she began to untangle the knots of pain, anger, and self-blame. By the time she was discharged, something had shifted. The hospital hadn't erased the hurt, but it had given her tools to face it. Olivia returned home with a fragile but growing sense of acceptance. She sat at her kitchen table one evening, a mug of chamomile tea warming her hands, and let the truth settle in her bones. Marcus's betrayal, Sophia's cruelty, the loss of those material tokens, they were real, and they had wounded her deeply, but they didn't define her. She wasn't the broken ex-wife they tried to make her feel like. She was Olivia Thompson, mother of 2 incredible children, survivor of a marriage that had tested her strength, and a woman capable of forging a new path. She glanced at the living room, where Liam was sprawled on the couch, sketching in a notebook, and Lily was practicing a new dance routine, her laughter filling the air. Olivia's heart ached, but it was a softer ache now, laced with love rather than despair. She thought of the boxes she'd sent to Marcus, the list she'd meticulously crafted, and Sophia's gloating voice. Those things belonged to a chapter that was closed. The story she was writing now, her story, Liam's, Lily's, was just beginning. "Mom, you okay?" Liam called, glancing up from his sketch. His voice held a quiet concern, the kind only a teenager who'd seen too much could muster. Olivia smiled, a real one this time, small but steady. "Yeah, sweetheart, I'm getting there." Lily twirled over, her ponytail bouncing. "Want to dance with me? It's fun." Olivia laughed, setting her mug down. "You know I'm terrible at it, but sure. Show me your moves." As she joined Lily, stumbling through the steps and laughing at her own clumsiness, Olivia felt a flicker of lightness she hadn't known in months. Acceptance wasn't a destination, she realized. It was a process, one she'd walk every day. But for the first time in a long while, she believed she could. With her children by her side, she'd build a life not defined by what she'd lost, but by what she still had and what she'd yet to discover. Months later, as Olivia began to find her footing in her new life, snippets of news about Marcus and Sophia trickled in through a mutual friend, Nora. One crisp autumn afternoon, over coffee at a cozy cafe in Cedarville, Nora leaned in, her voice low with gossip. "You won't believe this, Olivia. Sophia had a baby boy. Must have been pregnant during the divorce, but they kept it quiet." Olivia's spoon paused mid-stir, her heart giving a small, unexpected lurch. She hadn't thought of Sophia in weeks, had been trying to focus on her own healing, Liam, and Lily. The news shouldn't have mattered, but it did, if only for a moment. "A boy," she repeated softly, picturing a tiny face caught in the chaos of Sophia's world. "Are they married now?" Nora shook her head, her lips pursing. "Nope, still not married, and from what I hear, things aren't exactly rosy." She hesitated, then spilled the rest. Sophia, it seemed, was a far cry from the glamorous victor she'd portrayed herself as. As a mother, she was neglectful, often leaving the baby unattended while she went on lavish shopping sprees, maxing out Marcus's credit cards. Nora's sources, friends, mostly, whispered that Sophia was on antidepressants, sleeping through much of the day, leaving the boy to cry in his crib. Worse, she'd been heard yelling at him, her patience fraying at the demands of motherhood. "It's a mess," Nora said, her voice heavy with disapproval. "That poor kid." Olivia listened, her expression calm but her mind churning. She thought of the emerald necklace Sophia had gloated about, the way she'd reveled in her supposed triumph. Now that image felt hollow, replaced by the reality of a struggling woman and a neglected child. Olivia felt no satisfaction, only a quiet sadness for the baby, innocent and caught in the crossfire of his parents' dysfunction. Time passed, and Olivia focused on her own world. Lily's dance recital, Liam's science fair projects, her own tentative steps back into painting, a passion she'd shelved during her marriage. But Nora's updates kept coming, each one painting a bleaker picture. One evening, as Olivia was folding laundry, her phone buzzed with Nora's name. She answered, bracing herself. "Olivia, you're not going to believe this," Nora said, her voice urgent. Marcus and Sophia had a huge fight. Apparently, he slapped her, hard. She called the police, and they took him in for the night. "It's all over the neighborhood now." Olivia's breath caught. Marcus had never raised a hand to her, not once, even in the darkest moments. The news unsettled her, not because she cared for him anymore, but because it revealed how far he'd fallen. "What happened?" she asked, her voice steady. Nora sighed. "From what I heard, it was about money. Sophia's been spending like crazy, and Marcus is stressed about the baby and work. They were screaming at each other, and he just lost it. Sophia's pressing charges, or at least threatening to. It's a disaster." Olivia sat down, a shirt she'd been folding resting in her hands. She thought of the baby, barely a toddler, witnessing his parents unraveling. "I feel sorry for that poor boy," she said quietly. "He doesn't deserve this. No kid does." Nora's voice softened. "You're too kind, Olivia. After everything they put you through, you're still thinking about that child." Olivia managed a small smile, though Nora couldn't see it. "It's not about them, Nora. It's about that baby. He's got no one looking out for him. The illusion of Marcus and Sophia's passionate romance began to crack not long after the boxes from Olivia arrived. Their contents, a fleeting triumph, couldn't sustain the fragile foundation of their relationship. Once the thrill of conquest, Marcus claiming Olivia's possessions, Sophia reveling in her spoils, faded, the reality of their life together set in. What had seemed like love, fiery and all-consuming, cooled into something far less glamorous. Marcus, who had once seen Sophia as his liberator, began to see her for what she was, a manipulator who'd played him as deftly as a chess grandmaster. He'd fallen for her trap, lured by her charm and confidence, only to find himself ensnared in a dynamic that drained him dry. Sophia's demands were relentless. The financial ones were the least of it. Marcus could handle her endless shopping sprees, the designer clothes piling up in their apartment, the extravagant dinners she insisted on. He'd grit his teeth and pay the bills, even as his bank account dwindled and his stress mounted. But her emotional demands were a labyrinth he couldn't navigate. She craved constant validation, her mood swinging like a pendulum, one moment showering him with affection, the next berating him for some perceived slight. "You don't appreciate me, Marcus," she'd snap, her voice sharp as she waved a glass of wine, her eyes glittering with accusation. "After everything I've done for you, you're still not enough." In the beginning, her unconventional preferences in bed had ignited a spark in Marcus, a stark contrast to the predictable rhythm of his marriage to Olivia. But what once thrilled him turned dark, her desires pushing boundaries that left him uncomfortable, even repulsed. He complied at first, desperate to keep her satisfied, but the encounters grew hollow, leaving him feeling used rather than desired. Night after night, he'd retreat to the garage, the cold concrete floor his refuge. There, hidden among the clutter of unopened boxes from Olivia, he'd nurse a bottle of whiskey, the burn of alcohol a temporary escape from the chaos of his thoughts. Sophia's control tightened like a noose. She monitored his every move, her accusations sharp and unrelenting. "You're drinking too much, Marcus," she'd hiss, catching the faint whiff of liquor on his breath, her eyes narrowing with disdain. "You're pathetic." Yet she'd pour herself another martini, her hypocrisy glaring. Marcus, once the confident man who'd strutted out of the courtroom with a smirk, felt like a puppy on a leash, yanked this way and that by her whims. He'd catch himself nodding to her demands, agreeing to her rants just to avoid another screaming match. The apartment, once a symbol of his new life, felt like a cage. Things spiraled further, the fights growing uglier. The night he slapped her, his hand striking her cheek in a moment of blind frustration, was a low he'd never imagined sinking to. The police, the night in a cell, the neighbors' whispers. It was a wake-up call, but not the first. In the quiet of those garage nights, as the whiskey dulled his senses, a thought had begun to creep in, insidious and persistent. He'd been wrong. At the start of his affair with Sophia, he'd convinced himself he'd found true love, that Olivia had been the anchor holding him back from happiness. Sophia's vibrancy, her boldness, had seemed like everything he'd been missing. But now, staring at the wreckage of his life, he wondered if he'd been too quick, too reckless, to make those bold moves. The garage was Marcus's sanctuary, a dim, cluttered refuge where he could escape Sophia's relentless demands. One evening, after another barbed argument over her latest shopping spree, he slipped inside, his hands trembling with the need for his hidden bottle of vodka. He rummaged through the shelves, shoving aside paint cans and forgotten gym equipment, his frustration mounting as the bottle eluded him. His fingers grazed the edge of an unopened box, one of the ones Olivia had sent. Tearing off the lid with a reckless tug, he froze. Inside, neatly packed, were hundreds of photographs, stacked and tied with delicate ribbons. Marcus's breath caught as he lifted one bundle, his fingers fumbling with the knot. The images spilled free, and happy faces stared back at him, his own, younger and unburdened. Olivia's, radiant with a smile he hadn't seen in years. Little Liam's, smeared with ice cream. Lily's, framed by pigtails. There they were at the bay, tanned and laughing, the waves crashing behind them. There, at an amusement park, arms wrapped around each other on a carousel. There, at home by the Christmas tree, surrounded by torn wrapping paper and glowing lights. On the back of each photo, Olivia's careful calligraphic handwriting noted the details. "Our first vacation together, 2010. I'm so happy." Liam is 3 here, 2012, he loves cotton candy. The best new year of our lives, 2015. Marcus's throat tightened, a lump forming as his eyes burned. He set the photos aside, his hands shaking, and reached for another stack. These were children's drawings, their colors faded but vivid with memory. Crooked houses under lopsided suns, clumsy stick figures holding hands. Each was signed in a child's unsteady scrawl. I love Dad. Dad is the strongest. Dad is the best. Marcus's chest ached, the words piercing through the haze of his denial. He hadn't seen these in years, hadn't realized Olivia had kept them, preserved them like treasures. He kept digging, unable to stop. There were cards he'd written to Olivia in the early years, their edges worn from handling. Romantic poems penned in his fervent handwriting, de-Evelyn-tians of love that felt like they belonged to another man. You're my forever, Olivia. I'll never let you go. Promises of eternal fidelity, now mocking in their brokenness. Beneath them, a stack of Liam's and Lily's school notebooks, filled with the childish gratitude. Thank you, Mommy, for helping me with math, I got an A. Thank you, Daddy, for explaining how to solve the problem. Marcus's vision blurred, tears spilling silently as he traced the words, the weight of what he'd thrown away crashing over him. The garage door creaked open, and Sophia's voice cut through the silence, sharp with irritation. What the heck are you doing in here, Marcus? I've been calling you for 10 minutes. Marcus didn't look up. He sat frozen, a drawing of a stick figure family clutched in his hand, the words, Dad is best, staring back at him. His silence only fueled Sophia's annoyance. She stormed closer, her heels clicking on the concrete. Are you ignoring me? What's all this junk? She peered over his shoulder, her lip curling at the sight of the photos and drawings. Oh, great. More of Olivia's garbage. Why are you wasting time on this? Marcus's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, his fingers tightening around the drawing. He pulled out another photo, Olivia laughing as Lily smeared cake on her face at a birthday party, and Sophia's scoff grated against his nerves. Pathetic, she muttered. Get rid of it, Marcus. We don't need her trash cluttering up our space. He finally looked at her, his eyes raw with something she couldn't read. Grief, anger, clarity. It's not trash, he said, his voice low, unsteady, but firm. These are my kids, my family. Sophia blinked, caught off guard by the steel in his tone. Your family? She sneered, recovering quickly. You mean the one you left? Don't get all sentimental now. You wanted this life, Marcus. You chose me. He stared at her, the woman he'd once thought was his salvation, and saw her clearly for the first time. The manipulation, the control, the chaos, she thrived on it. It wasn't love. It was a trap. And he'd walked into it willingly, blinded by his own discontent. I was wrong, he said quietly, the words slipping out before he could stop them. Sophia's eyes narrowed, her voice rising. What did you just say? But Marcus didn't answer. He turned back to the box, his hands moving gently now, reverently, as he gathered the photos and drawings, tucking them back into their ribbons. He stood, the box cradled in his arms, and brushed past her without a word, heading into the apartment. Sophia's shouts followed him. Don't you dare walk away from me. But they felt distant, insignificant. Marcus stood in the dim glow of the living room, the open box from Olivia at his feet, its contents spilling across the coffee table like a map of a life he'd abandoned. His hands trembled as he reached for the large folder at the bottom, its weight heavy with significance. He opened it, expecting more photos or drawings, but instead found hundreds of receipts, meticulously organized in plastic sleeves. Each one was for the children: clothing, shoes, toys, books, tuition for educational programs. Olivia's neat handwriting labeled them: Liam's winter coat, 2021, $85. Lily's new boots, 2022, $60. Liam's science camp, 2023, $450. Lily's ballet classes, 2024, $320. Marcus's breath grew shallow as he flipped through the folder, his fingers brushing the faded ink. He grabbed a calculator from a nearby drawer, his movements frantic, and began tallying the amounts. Within minutes, the numbers painted a stark truth. The total Olivia had spent on Liam and Lily in recent years dwarfed the value of every gift he'd demanded back. The jewelry, the telescope, the music box, all of it. Thousands upon thousands of dollars poured into their well-being, their growth, their happiness, while he'd been fixated on reclaiming trinkets to appease Sophia's greed. Then he saw it, a small piece of paper clipped to the final receipt, its edges crisp, as if Olivia had placed it there with deliberate care. Her handwriting, steady and elegant, filled the page with just a few lines, but they struck him like a blade. I returned everything you wanted back. All the photos, drawings, cards, notebooks, receipts, jewelry, and gadgets. All the material values. But the things you never gave, love, care, support, attention, I kept for myself and the kids. That's something you can never take from us. The paper slipped from his hands, fluttering to the floor. Marcus's knees buckled, and he sank onto the couch, the world around him crumbling. The weight of Olivia's words pressed into him, each one a mirror reflecting his failures. He hadn't just lost money or possessions. He'd lost a family, a love that had been real and enduring, a version of himself he barely recognized anymore. The photos of bay vacations, the drawings proclaiming, "Dad is best," the cards filled with his own promises of forever. They were relics of a life he'd traded for Sophia's fleeting allure, for a hollow existence that now mocked him. Sophia's voice sliced through the silence, sharp with disdain. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her eyes flicking over the scattered contents of the box. "So, what are you going to do with all this junk now?" she asked, her tone dripping with impatience. "Throw it away or sit here crying over old photos like a loser?" Marcus didn't respond. He stared at the box, at the folder of receipts, Olivia's note lying on the floor. Her words echoed in his mind. Love, care, support, attention. He'd given so little of those, convinced himself that child support payments and occasional gifts were enough. But Olivia had been the one there, day after day, stitching their family together while he chased a mirage. And now, surrounded by the tangible remnants of his past, he saw the truth. He'd traded genuine love for Sophia's shallow admiration, real values for shiny tinsel. The fruits of his selfishness and foolishness were bitter, and they were his alone to bear. Sophia snapped, stepping closer, her heels clicking on the hardwood. "Are you even listening to me? This is pathetic. Get rid of it." One quiet afternoon, Olivia's phone buzzed, and the name on the screen stopped her cold, Marcus. She hesitated, her thumb hovering over the answer button, then picked up, her voice cautious. "Hello, Olivia, it's me," Marcus said, his tone softer than she'd ever heard it. I need to apologize. For everything. The divorce, the gifts, the way I treated you and the kids. I was wrong, and I'm so sorry." He paused, his breath shaky. "I'd like to meet, if you're willing. Just to talk." Olivia's heart stuttered, a mix of shock and something else she hadn't expected to feel. Was it a flicker of the love she'd once held for him, buried beneath layers of pain, or just the surprise of his humility? She ended the call politely, promising to think it over. But as she sat in her kitchen, staring at the phone, thoughts of giving him a second chance crept in. Could he have changed? Could there be a way to mend things, if not for them, then for Liam and Lily? The idea felt reckless, yet it tugged at her, stirring a hope she wasn't sure she trusted. Needing clarity, Olivia called the one person she knew would cut through her confusion, her best friend, Rachel. "Can we meet?" she asked, her voice urgent. "I need to talk." They met at their favorite cafe in Cedarville, a cozy spot with mismatched chairs and the warm scent of fresh coffee. Olivia spilled everything. Marcus's call, his apology, the unexpected stirrings in her heart. Rachel listened, her expression darkening with every word. When Olivia finished, Rachel set her mug down with a deliberate thud, her eyes blazing with conviction. "Olivia, listen to me," Rachel said, her voice firm, no trace of her usual warmth. "Do not let Marcus near you. Not under any circumstances. Nothing good will come of this." Olivia blinked, caught off guard by the intensity. But he sounded different, like he's really sorry. "Sorry," Rachel cut in, leaning forward. "Olivia, let's recap. This man betrayed you. He lied to you, cheated on you with Sophia, and then had the audacity to demand your jewelry and the kids' gifts back, like you were some pawn shop. He demeaned you, humiliated you in court with that absurd stunt, denigrated everything you built together. Where was his conscience then? He didn't have one. Olivia's throat tightened, the memories flooding back. Marcus's smug grin in the courtroom, Sophia's predatory glee, the boxes she'd packed with trembling hands. Rachel wasn't done. Think about how he announced the divorce, she pressed. Cold, dismissive, like you were nothing. He moved on without a backward glance, flaunting Sophia while you were picking up the pieces for Liam and Lily. He didn't care about your pain, Olivia. He didn't care about the kids. And now, what? He's sorry because his shiny new life with Sophia imploded. That's not remorse. That's convenience. Olivia stared into her coffee, the steam curling upward, her mind a tug-of-war between Rachel's words and that faint, foolish hope. I just thought, maybe he's realized what he lost. Maybe he wants to make things right. Rachel's voice softened, but her resolve didn't waver. Olivia, given all he's done, why the heck would you give this insidious man a moment of your time? He didn't love you, not the way you deserved. Love doesn't destroy someone and then come crawling back when the grass isn't greener. He's not here for you. He's here because he's lost control of his own mess. She reached across the table, gripping Olivia's hand. Please, do yourself a favor. Refuse to meet him. You fought so hard to rebuild your life, to be strong for yourself and the kids. Don't let him drag you back into his chaos. You're worth more than his half-baked apologies. Olivia's eyes stung, Rachel's words cutting through the fog of her emotions like a beacon. Rachel was right. Marcus's apology, sincere or not, couldn't erase the wreckage he'd left behind. And she didn't owe him a second chance, not after everything. You're right, Olivia said finally, her voice steady, a weight lifting from her chest. I won't meet him. I'm done letting him have power over me. Rachel's face softened into a proud smile. That's my girl. You've got this, Olivia. You've got everything you need right here. She tapped Olivia's chest, right over her heart. That evening, Olivia sat at her kitchen table, a blank canvas propped nearby, and drafted a text to Marcus. I appreciate your apology, but I'm not interested in meeting. I've moved on, and I wish you well. Please don't contact me again. She hit send, then set the phone down, her hands steady. She turned to the canvas, picking up a brush, and began painting, a bold stroke of red, vibrant and unapologetic. Her life, her love, her strength, they were hers, and no one, not even Marcus, could take them away. At home, Liam and Lily were sprawled in the living room, arguing playfully over a board game. Olivia joined them, laughing as Lily tried to sneak an extra turn. This was her world, whole and enough. Marcus's call was a ripple, not a wave, and she'd already weathered the storm. Decision to close the door on Marcus, her life had settled into a rhythm of quiet fulfillment. The art gallery where she worked part-time in Brookhaven had become a second home, her paintings earning praise and a small but growing following. Liam was thriving in his final year of high school, his science projects winning awards, while Lily's dance performances lit up local recitals. The house, once shadowed by the pain of the divorce, now hummed with laughter, creativity, and the warmth of a family that had weathered the worst and come out stronger. Olivia's heart, though scarred, was whole again, filled with the love she poured into her children and the life she'd built on her own terms. She kept Marcus's apology at a distance, a faint echo that no longer stirred her. Nora's occasional updates, Marcus and Sophia's final split, his struggles to reconnect with their son, were met with a nod and a change of subject. Olivia's focus was forward, not back. She'd framed more of Lily's drawings, hung new paintings in the living room, and even started hosting small gatherings with friends like Rachel, whose fierce loyalty had been a lifeline. Life wasn't perfect, but it was hers, and that was enough. One crisp spring morning, Olivia was at the gallery, arranging a new exhibit of local artists, when a woman approached her. She was in her late 50s, with sharp eyes and a warm smile, introducing herself as Margaret Grayson, a curator from a prestigious art institute in Riverton. I've been following your work, Margaret said, gesturing to one of Olivia's vibrant abstracts, a swirl of blues and golds inspired by her children's dreams. It's raw, powerful. You have a gift. Olivia blushed, unaccustomed to such praise. Thank you. That means a lot. Margaret's smile widened. I'm curating a national exhibition next month, and I'd like to feature your work. 3 pieces, prominently displayed. It's a big opportunity, Olivia. Your story, your resilience. It's in every brushstroke. People need to see it. Olivia's breath caught, her mind reeling. A national exhibition? Her work seen by thousands. It was a dream she'd never dared to voice, a validation of the passion she'd rediscovered after years of putting it aside. I'd be honored, she stammered, her heart racing. There's more, Margaret added, her eyes twinkling. We have a grant program for emerging artists. I'd like to nominate you. It comes with funding for a solo show, a stipend to support your work, and mentorship to take your career to the next level. You're exactly the kind of artist we want to champion. Tears prickled Olivia's eyes, but she laughed, a sound of pure, unfiltered joy. I don't know what to say. This is incredible. Say yes, Margaret said warmly. You've earned it. Olivia did, and the weeks that followed were a whirlwind. She selected her best pieces for the exhibition, poured her heart into new ones, and felt a spark of pride she hadn't known was possible. When she told Liam and Lily, they whooped and hugged her, Lily declaring, Mom, you're going to be famous. Liam, ever the pragmatist, grinned and said, just don't forget us when you're a big shot. Rachel, over wine at the next coffee date, toasted her with a fierce, I told you, Olivia, you're unstoppable. The twist, though, came on the night of the exhibition's opening. The gallery in Riverton was alive with people, critics, collectors, locals, all buzzing around Olivia's paintings, their colors glowing under the lights. Olivia, dressed in a simple but elegant black dress, moved through the crowd, accepting compliments with a gracious smile. Liam and Lily were there, beaming with pride, and Rachel hovered nearby, snapping photos like a proud parent. As Olivia spoke with a critic, a familiar figure caught her eye across the room, standing by her largest painting, a bold canvas titled Reclamation. It was Marcus. He looked different. Older, his face lined with a weariness that hadn't been there before. He stood alone, hands in his pockets, staring at the painting as if it held answers he couldn't find. Olivia's heart skipped, not with longing, but with surprise. She hadn't invited him or spoken to him since her text refusing his meeting. How had he known? She excused herself and approached, her steps measured, her expression neutral. Marcus, she said, her voice calm. What are you doing here? He turned, startled, and for a moment, she saw the man from the photos in that box. Vulnerable, human. I heard about your exhibition, he said, his voice low. Nora mentioned it. I didn't come to bother you, Olivia. I had to see it. Your work. It's incredible. She studied him, searching for manipulation, but found none. His eyes were red-rimmed, his posture defeated. Thank you, she said, keeping her distance. But why are you really here? Marcus swallowed, glancing at the painting. I found the box, he said quietly. The photos, the drawings, your note. It broke me, Olivia. I've been trying to make things right, reaching out to Liam and Lily, starting therapy, trying to be a better father to my son. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I needed you to know I see what I lost. And I'm proud of you. You're everything I wasn't. Olivia's breath caught, but she didn't soften. She didn't need his validation anymore. I appreciate that, she said, her voice steady. But this, she gestured to the gallery, the crowd, her children laughing nearby. This is mine. I built it without you. I wish you well, Marcus, but my life doesn't include you anymore. He nodded, a flicker of pain crossing his face, but he didn't argue. I understand, he said. I just hope the kids might let me try one day. That's up to them, Olivia said, her tone firm but not unkind. Good luck, Marcus. She turned away, rejoining Liam and Lily, who hadn't noticed Marcus's presence. As she hugged them, the weight of his words faded, replaced by the joy of the moment. The unexpected twist wasn't Marcus's appearance. It was the realization that his remorse, his regret, no longer held power over her. She was free, truly free, and the world was opening to her in ways she'd never imagined. As the night wound down, Margaret pulled Olivia aside, handing her a letter confirming the grant and a check for the first stipend. "You're going places, Olivia," she said. "This is just the beginning." Olivia smiled, tucking the letter into her purse. She looked at her children, at Rachel's proud grin, at the paintings that told her story. Marcus's shadow had passed, a brief ripple in her sea of triumph. The twist, the happiest one, was that her future was hers, bright and boundless.